I'm Idiotech, and this is my review of Rainbow Six Siege for PC. Rainbow Six Siege is a competitive online tactical shooter that retails for $60 US. The game has 3 core modes, 20 classes, and 10 maps. There is no single player campaign or story, and the game has microtransactions. Now, I know a lot of people are going to want me to talk about the single player campaign, or the lack thereof one, and the price point as well as microtransactions, and I will do that in this review. First up though is performance. This game runs exceptionally well. I'm able to hold 60 FPS at 1080p on ultra settings all the time. I'm running an i7 4790K and a GTX 980, so if you're running a similar system, you can expect similar results. The only thing for me that seems to impact performance significantly is anti-aliasing, and I've pretty much turned that down completely, especially the post-processing anti-aliasing, which makes the game look incredibly blurry, and I do recommend that you turn that off. Overall though, the game runs really well. It has a great options menu, and it has a built-in benchmarking tool, which is very rare these days, and I'm very happy to see that. So yeah, no complaints on performance. The game runs really well and has a great set of tools. Another technical aspect of the game I need to talk about quickly is server stability. The game in beta and alpha and closed beta and whatever had tons of server issues, whether it be constantly getting disconnected, poor matchmaking, high pings. I am happy to report that every single one of the issues I had has been addressed. I no longer get pings above 100, which is fantastic. I match with people in my region, which is also great. And the game no longer disconnects at random, and I can constantly and consistently log into Ubisoft servers. So I have to give kudos to Ubisoft there, because this game otherwise would have been dead on arrival, and it's great to see that they fixed those issues. As for the game itself, it has 3 core modes. The first of these is Situations. We have 10 single-player missions, although one of them later in the game is actually cooperative, but let's ignore that for the time being. So we have 10 missions. Each of these missions essentially teaches new players a specific gameplay mechanic, whether that be how to use your drones, or how to breach, or how to use a specific class in the game. And I think, as a tutorial, it's incredibly well done, and I appreciate the extra attention to detail they have put into this to teach new players how the game works and to bring them up to speed, which honestly in a game this deep is absolutely essential. It's overall really good, but it's not just a good tutorial. It's not a single player campaign, and I will get to that, but it isn't just a tutorial. There is some fun to be had here. Each mission has a very specific set of circumstances. It feels like this little contained mission, like go rescue a hostage, or go breach into this place where we have no intel and use your drone, or whatever. And I found each of them quite satisfying to engage in, and as you progress through each scenario, they get progressively more difficult, and I really enjoyed that. Each mission has 3 side objectives. So for example, complete it without losing a certain percentage of health, complete it while killing 2 guys with a grenade, complete it while getting 2 headshots, etc, etc. If you do this, you'll get an extra renown reward. Now, renown is the game's in-game currency that you use to unlock different classes, or as they're called, operators in this game, as well as loadout stuff like grips and sights and things of that nature. So, if you want lots of renown and you want to unlock everything really quickly in the multiplayer portion of the game, I thoroughly recommend that you check out the Situations, because not only are they challenging and enjoyable, but they'll also teach you the game and give you a significant amount of renown as a reward. My only real problem with this mode is I feel it's a missed opportunity in terms of storytelling. When you first start up the game, there is a significant sort of cutscene that introduces the idea of a story, and then at the end of Situations, you get a mission with a big cutscene and lots of story stuff, and it feels like it's setting up for a single-player campaign that just never got made. And I'm kind of sad about that, because I really think that if this game had a single-player campaign with AI buddies that you could control and tell them where to go, like the previous Rainbow Six games, it would have been a lot more tempting for its $60 price tag. That being said, Situations are still enjoyable, but it does make me feel like I'm missing out on a single-player experience. The next mode is Terrorist Hunt. So we have 5 players versus the AI. It's a co-op mode, essentially. We have 4 game types: Classic, Hostage Extraction, Protect Asset, and Disarm Bombs. Now, I want to talk about each of these modes briefly, but I also want to discuss some of the balance concerns I have regarding each of these modes. Now, Classic is a very simple mode. Basically, it's enter a building and kill all the bad guys. The only real challenge you'll have here is sometimes your teammates will get killed by suicide bombers because they weren't particularly smart, or they weren't listening out for the sounds, or using their drones, or whatever. But for the most part, it's a pretty easy and concise mode. Hostage Extraction, on the other hand, is bad. It's bad because the AI isn't smart enough to deal with you as a player extracting a hostage. So what essentially ends up happening in all the games I've played is you go into the room where the hostage is, you kill all the guys really quickly, you extract the hostage, you run away. And the guy with the hostage is protected by his teammates. The AI will try and attack you. It's very easy to pick them off and kill them. And then you run to a point and stand there for 10 seconds until you capture the hostage. Those matches last very little time at all. Every game I've played has lasted maybe less than 5 minutes. It's very, very simple, very little challenge involved, and I think that needs to be changed. I think it needs to be balanced to make it a lot more difficult than it currently is. Protect Asset is kind of the reverse of that situation, so you are the terrorist, although you're not, you're still Spec Ops for some reason, and you have a hostage and you're trying to protect them from waves and waves of terrorists. You just fight off several waves, you barricade the walls, you put up booby traps, stuff like that, and then you hold off waves of enemies, and it's as simple as that. That can be exploited. You can kind of funnel the enemies into funnels and then shoot them, and then you kind of win. So that's easy and hard depending on how crap your teammates are, but it's okay. It's an okay mode. It doesn't feel particularly inspired or exciting. The mode that's actually really hard, I've found anyway, is disarm bombs. Now, the reason for this is because you enter a building, there's bad guys everywhere, you kill the bad guys. You've got to find these 2 bombs. When you find the first bomb, you disarm that bomb, and during the disarming phase, you have to hold that position for a minute while they just spawn wave after wave after wave of enemy. And if you are not in a coordinated team, using mic or via chat or something, you're going to have a hard time with this because your teammates will take damage. They may even die. And the problem is that you then have to work your way to the next bomb, fight a whole bunch of enemies to get there, and then hold off another wave, at which point your team is significantly weakened. And that can be really challenging. I've had a lot of teams die on that second bomb. The teams that don't die on that second bomb are teams that are using voice over IP. Those teams do well because they strategize and they work together as a team to overcome the problem, and most of the time you win. So that mode is very dependent on whether or not you have good teamwork, and when you're in a public game, that's kind of hit or miss. So I feel like some of the modes are slightly more challenging than they need to be, and some of the modes are slightly more easy than they need to be, and there needs to be a little bit of tuning there. But overall, I really like Terrorist Hunt. It's a nice break from the intensity of the core multiplayer mode that I'll get onto in a minute, and while suicide bombers still exist, and a lot of people didn't like them in the beta, they have been massively changed and tuned to make them much easier to kill, and I think they move a little less fast than they used to. Overall, I've not been running into problems with them at all. I think this mode is great, but again, like the rest of this game, it relies heavily on teamwork, and if you don't have a good team or you've just got a team of new players, you might struggle at points. For me, at least, multiplayer is the reason to pick up Rainbow Six Siege. It's a 5 versus 5 terrorist versus counter-terrorist PvP mode. There are 3 game types: secure area, bomb, and hostage. Secure area requires the attacking team to find a biohazard container and stand there for 10 seconds. However, most of the time, it just devolves into a team deathmatch round, which is totally fine. Next, we have bomb, which there are 2 bomb locations. The attacking team has to come in and defuse one of those bombs. And then finally we have hostage, which requires us to go in, find a hostage, and extract them. Very simple premise. But when you combine those simple game modes with the amazing destructibility this game has on offer, the procedurally generated destruction, and the huge selection of classes, we have 20 classes here, it creates, for me at least, an exceedingly enjoyable tactical experience. It's incredibly intense, very strategic, and no game you play is the same. Because we have 10 maps, but on those 10 maps, the objectives are randomized. The locations of those objectives, they're randomized, which makes it feel very, very replayable. Not just that, but we have rounds, and so every round, the attacking and defending team will have to approach things a little differently, because the last time around, we learnt what our attacker or defender did. It's great. There is so much replay value here. Every game is different, and I absolutely adore that. It's very similar to StarCraft or League of Legends or Dota, where you're playing the same simple modes or the same maps, but because of the gameplay, because of the way that players come together and create different tactics and strategies every time. Every game you play feels new and different, and I absolutely love it. It's full of wow moments where your whole team will be cheering for you when you're the last guy alive and you're up against a team of 5 guys and you take all of them out. It's one of those games where you get those amazing moments, and I absolutely love it. One of the core reasons for that, though, is because of the operators, and that's something I feel I really need to discuss. So I'll give you an example here. We've got Capcan. Now, Capcan can set booby traps at the base of each door. And so if the enemy doesn't check the floor, they'll walk into those traps and they'll die. Or if they don't have a team member who can disable traps, for example. So they have to be aware of that. Next up, we have IQ. So she has a little thing on her arm where she can find explosive devices, so she can counter Capcam. Then we have Rook, who will place a sack of armor on the ground and everyone can pick it up and it gives them more health. Then we have Doc, for example. He can shoot a dart at his downed teammates to revive them without going into harm's way. We have all sorts of different characters here. Thermite, who can burst through. Normally when you can breach through wood or you can breach through drywall. But he can breach through pretty much any structure, and that's fantastic because if they've barricaded their wall, you can still get through. We have Smoke, who can set up these little smoke bombs that release poison gas and kill everyone in the area. We have Sledge, who can smash walls and create new lines of sight. I think you're getting my point here. There are 20 of these guys, and each and every single one of them feels unique and different. Now, some are better than others, but that's somewhat preference and also somewhat the situation you're in. But overall, they all feel very well balanced, and I'm thoroughly enjoying them so far. It adds so much strategic depth to this game, and when you combine it with that destructibility I was talking about, it creates, honestly for me, one of the most compelling first-person shooter experiences I have experienced in years. Now, before I give you my conclusion on the game, I briefly want to discuss the shop, microtransactions, and the progression system. This game has microtransactions, and I fundamentally disagree with this ethically, on a business front, and from a gameplay design front. Games used to reward players who were good, who'd invested lots of time in games with cool cosmetic items. Call of Duty 4, for example, if you were really good with the AK in that game, you'd get a gold AK. World of Warcraft, if you did a dungeon, you'd get some cool loot and everyone would know you did that dungeon and that you were good at the game. That's how these games used to work. We used to be rewarded with cosmetic items for hard work and playing a game well. Now they're relegated to microtransactions, and I disagree with that as it removes a fundamental and enjoyable aspect of games, which is the reward loop. However, the cosmetic items are not particularly great in this game, and the currency boosters, which are the other part of the microtransaction system, kind of feel unnecessary. So really, it's pretty reasonable as far as microtransactions go. The cosmetics, as I said, they're kind of dull. I have no desire to pick up any of them, and the currency boosters feel completely unnecessary. I have unlocked a lot of characters with very little effort in this game. I played some situations, I played some terrorist hunt, and I played some multiplayer, and I got like 8 dudes pretty instantly, as soon as I played the game, within the first couple of hours. So I really don't feel that the renown boosters are necessary in any way, and I at no point felt the need to purchase one. So that's good. Now, I understand that they plan to release lots of content post-release. For example, they're going to release maps and operators for free, and maybe that's why the microtransactions are there to justify this development time. And that's fine. However, if you want to go down that route with additional content and post-release support, again, I think the Counter-Strike model would have been more suitable. It also would have led to more people adopting the game initially, and we would have a higher player count, which would also be good for the game. Now, as for the progression system, it's pretty basic. You unlock a currency from playing the game. If you do well and you get a high score and you win the game, you'll get lots of renown. And you spend that renown unlocking the various operators. Essentially, initially, an operator will cost 500 renown, and then it will increase to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 as you own more and more operators. Now, that seems fine to me. It seems like it offers enough of a progression system for you to feel rewarded, but it doesn't hold anything back. I don't have any problems there. One area I do have problems, though, is the loadout customization. First of all, it's incredibly difficult to find. You have to go to the Operators tab, then click the operator you own, then go to their Loadout and Customization tab, then click the weapon you want to customize, and then click the thing you want to add to your weapon and then unlock it with renown. That's a very long and convoluted process, and it's hard to know it's even there in the first place. When I first played this game in beta, I had to look up online how to actually do it, and it hasn't changed. So I think there's some UI customization issues there. And also, the loadout customization itself isn't particularly interesting or thrilling in any way. Basically, my method is go in, buy everything that reduces recoil, buy a sight that I like, and never touch it ever again. And that's sad, because I feel there was a lot of room here for some creativity and some rewards, Getting some cool rewards for playing a game well would have been nice, but alas, it's not there. So that's the shop and progression system. I felt it was important to talk about those issues, so there you go. So, what is my conclusion on Rainbow Six Siege? Well, honestly, the question in my mind is not whether Rainbow Six Siege is a good game, because it is. In fact, I think it's a great game, and it will be on my top 10 games of this year list. The production values are excellent, the sound work is great, the graphics are great, and the core gameplay loop, especially in multiplayer mode, is incredibly satisfying and offers enough replay value for me to justify the $60 entry cost. However, I do have to say, games like Counter-Strike, which are pretty good, by the way, exist and they cost $15. So if you're not someone who's incredibly interested in the type of gameplay experience this game has to offer, if you're not interested in the teamwork element, if you're not interested in getting on mic and talking to your teammates and putting in a little bit of effort, then it really probably isn't the game for you. And that's sad, because if they put a little more effort into the communication tools and the price wasn't so high, I think it could have been a little bit more widely accepted and have some more mass appeal. Also, if you're looking for a solid single player experience, you will not find it here. There is some single player content, but it doesn't match anything akin to a campaign that those of you who played the previous Rainbow Six games might have been expecting. However, I think it is one of the best shooters to come out this year, and it's one of the most fun shooters I've played in a long time. It takes tactical shooting and combines it with multiplayer gameplay in a way that I haven't experienced, and I am thoroughly enjoying this game, and as a result, I have to recommend it. If you found this review helpful, please let me know in the comments below. If you've picked up the game yourself or played it in closed beta and you have your own thoughts, I'd be interested to hear what you think about it as well. If you want to support the channel, please like, favorite, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.